It looks like it actually works. Straight out of the box.
Oh, that's not a good start.
Hey Vital MTB, my name is Luca Cometti, and today I'm going to be testing this thing from Wheeltop, their electric derailleur system. So initially, this thing has pretty nice packaging that it comes with. I love the name, electronic derailleur system, very matter of fact. Okay, so initially we got this manual that I'm sure we will have a look through when we're actually putting this thing together. Inside we have our derailleur. We got a shifter, and looks like we got a charging cable. This is the long cage, which is 93 millimeter long, and this is what we're going to be testing for the duration of this test. So with this derailleur, it looks like you can run anything from 3 to 14 gears. Not sure when you'd ever use 3 gears, but they have the option. Kind of initially looking at this thing, it does not look like the battery is removable. Doing a little bit of digging on Wheeltop's website as well, it does not look like they market the fact that you can remove the battery. So unlike an Axis where you can just easily unclick and put a new battery, this looks like potentially if you were going to change it, you would have to remove a few bolts. Does not look like something that is sort of built into the design of this thing. However, I did find some battery specs, and it looks like this has a 800 milliamp hour battery compared to the Axis, which is 300 milliamp hours. So theoretically, this should last longer. We're obviously going to find out if that's the case, but I do like the fact that this does have a bit bigger battery than the Axis does, because I do find like the Axis does run out fairly quick. So we'll see how much use we get out of this thing. I think we'll go ahead and give it a full charge before we get going, and then we'll kind of just run it until it dies and see how long that is. Here we have our shifter as well, which initially looks fine. We got a little bit of texture on the paddles to give you a little grip. It looks like it actually works. Straight out of the box. So it's already linked up, ready to go. Quite fast too. It's definitely quicker than the transmission from SRAM. That thing is notoriously slow because it shifts at a certain part in the cassette. This is definitely similar to maybe an older Axis, which shifts a lot quicker. All right, one thing I do want to do is weigh this thing. So I'm going to grab a scale. Looks like the derailleur itself is 404 grams. The shifter is 69 grams. Together, 473 grams. I actually don't know how much an Axis or transmission weighs, but we'll put that somewhere in here in the video once we find those numbers and compare. Okay, now that we have weighed this thing, tested to make sure it works, we're going to get this thing down in the garage and actually get it mounted on a bike. I'm going to be mounting it on my Canyon Spectral on Fly, which is my lightweight e-bike, and putting it through its paces on that thing. So yeah, let's get down to the garage and see if we can't get this thing mounted up. It is going on this bike, which has a cable derailleur, so we got to get this thing all stripped out of here. I think I'm just going to try and get everything mounted onto the bicycle before we do any sort of setup, looking into the manual and whatnot. So it looks like most derailleurs these days, it takes a 5 mil to get it on. There's also 0 Loctite on this, so let's go ahead and drop a dabble of Loctite. Hopefully this thing won't be coming loose on us. Okay, got it installed. So far feels pretty tight on there. There's maybe like the slightest little bit of play side to side, but I think that's kind of normal. I mean, we're talking like hardly anything noticeable. Obviously we're running our derailleur hanger still. This is not transmission where you can get rid of the derailleur hanger and it bolts straight on. We still need our UDH derailleur hanger on this bike, and we're bolting it to that. Now for the shifter, which I guess if we're going to point out things that bother me, the fact that this shifter has no way to pull it fully open. You have to remove your grips, and I think I'll have to remove my brake to get it in there. So we're gonna have to do that. We're gonna try and start by running it on the outside of the brake. If not, we will move it. Won't really know exactly how it's going to feel until I get this bike on the ground. We can definitely do our initial setup and tuning with it like this. We're just going to go ahead and reuse the chain we had. This bike is not that old, so it should be plenty fine, although this thing is dirty. Give this old chain that's pretty dirty a little love. Suspension clean, not only for suspension. Works great on chains too. Drop in master links. All right, it looks like we're in the lowest gear here, which is what we want. Obviously, we're not going to have a nice little fancy lock like the SRAM to hold our derailleur in place. Maybe one of the most underrated things that SRAM has is that little lock when you're taking your chain off and on. Okay, so I think I'm going to start with seeing what the B tension needs to be set at. Usually there is a certain amount of mils that you want it away from the cassette. Looks like when we're in our easiest or biggest gear, we want about 4 to 10 mil of clearance. Okay, so that's where we're going to start. One thing that SRAM does usually include, I believe, with their axis set is the tool to kind of set that B tension. They don't make you measure it like we're going to here. They also recommend measuring that at sag. This here does not, so we're not going to measure it at sag. We're just going to go ahead and measure it on the stand right here. All right, first, oh, here we go, we're shifting. It is going up. Oh, and I think it's going off. Okay, so we definitely gotta adjust our limit screws, but at least let's get our B tension set. Okay, so we are at 20 mil, which is way too much. All right, let's go ahead and back the screw off. So I'm sort of thinking, because as our suspension compresses, this gap is going to get a bit further. We're gonna aim for on the bike to have it be maybe closer to 4 mil. I think that's close enough. We're within that range. Okay, we're looking at the book here. Looks like the low limit screw is bolt number 2, which is the one closest to us right now, closest to the outside of the bike, versus this is our high limit screw, which is the one on the inside of the bike. So we're at the top here. We want to go ahead and adjust that one first. Man, this is not even close. Okay, back to the book. Maybe we're doing things out of order here. All right, let's go from the beginning. Step 1, okay, is just diagrams on everything, shows you how to charge it. Okay, so it's claiming that we want to do the low limit screw first. I don't know how much that actually matters, but let's go ahead and do the low first. I've personally had more experience with SRAM and TRP, but generally when I've installed derailleurs, it's either been a TRP or a SRAM. Shimano's will generally come stock, and I will say usually when you bolt it up, obviously you're running it usually with their cassette, their whole interface, so those limit screws are generally pretty close to where you want to be. This, however, is looking pretty far off. I believe there is an app that you can download to help you tune this thing, set how many gears you have and all that stuff, so maybe we'll download that as well at some point. But we're going to go ahead and put it in the low gear now, see if we can get it to tune up there. We're going down. So we are in gear 2 right now. We want to be in gear 1, although we are not even contacting the limit screw right now. Okay, so we are not dropping down. So we are still in gear 2. Not sure what we should be doing now. So you know what? We're going to go ahead and download this app. Maybe we can actually get the derailleur to physically move further down this direction with some micro adjustments. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's download this app. It is called Wheeltop. Looks like this is it. 7 reviews, 3 stars. Not great numbers, but you know, it's 2 more stars than 1 star. We have a debugging process on the app. So ensure the rear derailleur is in the first gear position during debugging. Keep the chainring turning continuously, otherwise rear derailleur may be damaged. Do not perform initial calibration while riding. It is recommended to use fine-tuning screw method first. Okay, we tried to do that and it did not work. So we're going to do the debugging phase now. Please select your country. Enter my email, verification code, password. Does not like my password of choice. Let's try a different password. Okay, there we go. Gender, male, not sure why that matters for setting up a derailleur. Oh god, we gotta set an avatar. Let's see if we can log in, finally. Kind of a lengthy process for somebody who's just looking to debug their derailleur. We are on. We are in the app. Luca, welcome to Wheeltop. Add device. Pick device or press a button to discover. Go to name device. Vital MTB Derailleur. Named successfully. Please connect the device first. It is connected, I believe. For some reason, I had to hit this little Bluetooth thing. I think now we are officially connected. Debug. Okay, there we go. Looks like we got a video. It's going me through different flywheel options. No audio in this, so it's really just somebody that has screen recorded on their phone that is going through a bunch of different options on how to do things. Okay, I think we're gonna exit this video because I don't really feel I'm getting much out of it. Initial calibration. To fine-tune gear tolerance, select the left button. To fine-tune outward, select the right button. To fine-tune inward, if tune is unsuccessful, the equipment will make a little sound and fine-tune inside-outside. Key 1, click the arrow on the left and the arrow will light up. Then click confirm button and the device will move out for fine-tuning. Okay, lots of things that are a bit unclear to me. All right, we're gonna see if we can figure this out. Oh, there we go. Okay, so that worked. I actually went ahead and hit this and it moved the derailleur down. Okay, actually now I'm gonna set my lower limit. So we just barely moved it. Go ahead and shift up. Shifting my bike with an app right now. 2025. Oh, it's actually not letting me go up any further. You know, it might be getting conflicted by hitting this top limit screw, so I'm gonna go ahead and back off this limit screw just a little bit. Okay, now it seems to be holding. Look at that. All right, does not look like we are falling back into the spokes again. Okay, so it looks like you can actually fine tune each gear. So let's say between maybe gear 5 and 6 is shifting bad, it looks like you should be able to tune between each gear. That's kind of cool. One thing I do want to check is now that I kind of messed with the B tension, I want to get our B tension reset, just confirm that it's at the right length. Looks like we're right at 10 mil, which is apparently supposed to be fine. So I think we're going to leave it there. Before I go ride, I think the derailleur is at 80% right now. I'm going to go ahead and get it charged up to 100. And then we're just going to kind of run it and see how long it'll last. It looks like you can see your battery percentage through their app right here. When I go to the home page, it looks like my derailleur is at 80%. My shifter just says 3 volts. Yeah, I will say, luckily I feel like I'm pretty technically savvy. I was able to figure this out. It is not super crazy intuitive. Once you actually get the app downloaded, I would say it's fairly straightforward, but there was kind of some weird things like this little Bluetooth button here, that if it wasn't selected, even though your derailleur is technically here, you're not connected to it. So you actually need to tap this little Bluetooth icon. Hello? Okay, now we're back connected. Okay, so we got to tap this to actually connect to it. A little bit unintuitive, a little strange. But then once you're actually connected and you go into your settings, everything is fairly straightforward. You got your firmware upgrade, which we checked the firmware, it was good. Preferences, usage mode. It looks like you can adjust what is the up, what is the down. Yeah, similar to like your axis where you can adjust the up and the down. You can do that here as well. You have your whole debug thing, which is where you do your calibration. That was where I kind of set everything up. Gear shift and replace cassette. Oh, okay, that's if you want to choose a different cassette. So I'm set at 12 speed. If you wanted to change from 12 speed to something else, that's where you would do that. And then fine tuning individual gears. So this little menu screen is cool. It works fairly well. Kind of cool, you can actually manually shift your derailleur through your phone. So if your shifter were to die, I guess you could just get on your phone and shift if you really wanted to. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get this thing taken off, and pretty quiet. Not much noise. This thing definitely does not have the tightest clutch. Unsure if there's any way to tighten this clutch. That's something maybe I'll look into. I would maybe run it a little bit tighter than where it's at now, but we'll go ahead and run it first and see where we're at. All right, let's go give this thing a pedal. All right, so I initially talked about having the shifter pod on the outside of my brake, and it actually feels okay right there. Doesn't really give me any issues getting in the way of my thumb. It actually feels like it's kind of where I would probably prefer to have it. So yeah, let's go ahead and get this thing out on the trail, see how it rides when we actually hit some dirt and some rough stuff.
Oh, that's not a good start. We are 5 feet into the trail and my chain is off. That is not good. I actually ended up taking off the front chain guide on this bike. So no front chain guide, but I think a lot of people are kind of abandoning front chain guides for the most part. Some bikes come with them. Some bikes don't even have the option to run one anymore. Yeah, let's drop into another trail here and see how it goes. Okay, that trail was actually rougher and the chain stayed on, so. Oh, there we go again. Chain is off. We have done our first ride, did 4 trails today, and 2 of those trails I dropped the chain. Seems to be happening, especially when I'm in a harder gear, which is pretty normal when you're riding downhill, that you're in your lower gears. Yeah, that's a bit of a concern. No chain guide on this bike. We're gonna try and put a chain guide on and see if that helps. Also did a quick little trailside research to see if you could tighten this clutch, but did not find anything that said you could tighten it. So yeah, so far, besides the chain dropping, it's felt pretty good. There's a few gears it's kind of shifting weird in. So I'm gonna see if I can micro adjust those a bit. But besides that, we're through our first ride. The derailleur is still on the bike, it is not ripped off. And we got a few adjustments to make for the next ride, see if we can't get it to feel a little better. Okay, so been riding this derailleur now. I think I've gotten about 150 miles of riding in on it, on this Canyon Spectral on Fly. From when I started this test, I charged the derailleur up to 100%, and I just looked on the app right now, and it is down to 40%. So only used 60% of the battery so far, which is quite impressive. I believe that this derailleur has an 800 milliamp hour battery compared to the 300 that you find on a SRAM Axis system. So quite a bit bigger battery, and clearly it's efficient. Never had any issues with it turning off mid-ride or really doing anything strange with the connectivity between the shifter and the derailleur. Overall, the derailleur, I would say, impressed me. I thought it would be worse than it was, to be honest. The setup initially was a little bit tricky and took a bit of tinkering, but the Wheeltop app that they provide with the system actually works quite well. Wheeltop, just being a derailleur and shifter manufacturer, they don't have a cassette. So this derailleur has to be able to work on a variety of cassettes. And the fact that you can go from 3 to 14 gears, that means you should essentially be able to run this with 7-speed, 9-speed, 10-speed, 11-speed, 12-speed. Really any sort of speed cassette you should be able to run this thing with and sort of tune it with it. That being said, I pretty much ran it the whole time with this. I think it's either a Dior or an XT cassette that came stock on this bike. Yeah, initially I got it set up, shifting pretty smooth. I will say I did have to go into the app a few times and do some micro adjustments. There was a few times where certain gears just weren't shifting great. Other times also I would kind of come down from a trail and the shifting would be sort of jumping around on me. I actually just kind of went through this bike and cleaned it up and did shift down into the lowest gear and saw that the B tension screw had backed itself off a bit. So that's one of those things I guess you got to keep an eye on. I think generally for the most part, I would say a lot of companies, once you set your B tension, it tends to not move. The derailleur pretty much stayed tight the whole time. I sort of put some little white markings on it to keep track of it and pretty much never came loose. I was able to get the chain guide put back on this bike, and after that, it was pretty much good to go. Never had issues with dropping chains. However, recently, probably in the last week or so of testing this thing, I have had issues where this chain has fallen in between the pulley wheel and the cage, especially in some of the lower gears. I've found that I either need a pullover put the chain back on the pulley wheel, or if I shift up into an easier gear, it tends to kind of knock it back into place. It's kind of, you get what you pay for, just like most things in life. This is definitely, I think, the cheapest derailleur shifter combo on the market to go fully wireless. It's crazy how hard it is to design a derailleur, let alone make something that stays true. You can bash it into rocks. It should still mostly work as long as you don't hit it too hard. There's lots of moving pieces, probably the most moving pieces out of almost probably any component on a bicycle. And we ask a lot for it. It needs to be quiet. It needs to shift reliably. If it's wireless, it needs to not drop connection. I mean, there's really a lot of things that you're asking for out of a wireless system. So I think they've done a pretty good job. However, this is not a SRAM or a Shimano or a TRP or any sort of real name brand. So I foresee if you bring this into a bike shop, them kind of looking at you with a weird look and being like, I don't know that we can install this for you because this is probably the first time we're hearing about it. I might be wrong. I didn't bring this thing to a shop. I installed it myself. But kind of knowing how shops work and knowing that they only really want to work on the stuff that they want to work on, I kind of foresee this being more of a derailleur that you would get if it's going to be something you install yourself. So that not only takes the knowledge of being able to install and tune a derailleur, but also install and tune a derailleur for the first time. Wheeltop, I will say, does not do the best job of putting out any instructional how-to videos. They have some videos on their app that sort of feel like a bit of an afterthought. And then I think I looked on their website, they also have an installation video, which I will say might be the worst installation video I've ever seen. So yeah, I think they could definitely benefit from doing some proper installation videos in a few languages for people that are buying this thing all over the world and are going to be putting them on themselves. Fortunately for the world of YouTube that we live in, this derailleur has seen enough press now that I was able to find some pretty good videos of people getting this thing set up. And I kind of used those videos and the installation manual that Wheeltop provided to get this thing installed. I did go ahead and change the shifter orientation. So the lower trigger drops the chain down this way. The upper trigger makes the chain go up. That default was set the opposite way. I think similar to how an axis is. I like having the bottom pod bring your chain down, top pod bring your chain up. So that was something that I was able to tune and adjust. I would say for the most part, they've done a pretty good job designing a derailleur that's under $400, has a big size battery, is kind of cool and customizable in the way that you can adjust it for different cassettes and different speeds. Yeah, there are definitely some issues such as the clutch that isn't quite stiff enough and a few other things that keep it from kind of reaching that next level. So yeah, I'm excited to see what these guys do in the future. So speaking of the future, here we are in the future. So since finishing my review on this derailleur and finishing the edit, they actually have launched a 2.0 version of this derailleur, and it does look to have an adjustable clutch as well as a few other upgrades. So I think we'll have to try out this new derailleur at some point and see if it's actually an improvement on the old one. Another thing is, ever since they've launched this new 2.0 derailleur, I'm looking for a bunch of resources on the 1.0, such as an installation video and just old information on it. And all that information is pretty much completely gone, which is kind of wild. So I think if you have a 1.0 derailleur and you're looking for resources from Wheeltop, at least on their website or through their YouTube, there's not a whole lot left. But anyways, yeah, back to Pass Luca. I think it's cool to see other companies enter the market. So that concludes the Wheeltop EDS review. For any other news and reviews, make sure to go to vitalmtb.com, and we'll see you guys in some future videos. Thanks for watching.